She's talked about him moving to America for years. We thought the obstacle was his family, his culture, his past. We've watched her cry, watched her hope, watched her pack her bags, and then unpack them. For a decade, the narrative has been clear. Sumit's family is the wall between Jenny and her American dream. But what if that wall was just a stage prop? What if the real obstacle, the real puppet master pulling the strings, isn't Sumit's mother? What if it's their boss, TLC? What if we told you that every tear, every fight about moving to the US was all part of a script they are contractually forced to live? The truth is darker than you can imagine. If you want to know the real story, the one the network prays never gets out, hit that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what we are about to reveal will change the way you watch 90 Day Fiancé forever. This isn't a recap. This is an exposé. Welcome back to the deep dive. For years, the 90 Day Fiancé universe has been captivated and often frustrated by the saga of Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh. Their story is a cornerstone of the franchise, a seemingly endless loop of love, conflict, and cultural hurdles. We followed them from the early days of Sumit's catfishing through the shocking reveal of his secret marriage, the agonizingly long divorce process, the relentless disapproval of his parents, Anil and Sadhna, and finally, their hard-won marriage. Through it all, one question has remained the constant burning undercurrent of their narrative. When will Sumit finally move to America? Jenny has made her desires clear. She misses her daughters, her grandchildren, the life she left behind in Palm Springs. The promise of Sumit one day joining her in the United States has always been the light at the end of the tunnel, the supposed final chapter of their tumultuous story. We, the audience, have been led to believe that the only thing stopping this are Sumit's deep-seated fear of abandoning his parents and their powerful emotional hold over him. We've watched Sadhna threaten, cry, and emotionally blackmail her son. We've seen Sumit crumble under the pressure time and time again. The official story is one of a man torn between two worlds, and a woman patiently waiting for him to choose hers. But let's be honest, for a while now, haven't you felt that something was off? Doesn't the story feel stuck? The same arguments, the same tears, the same circular logic, season after season. Sumit promises to consider it, then finds a new reason not to. His parents object, they have a huge fight, they make up, and the cycle repeats. It's almost too perfect, too formulaic. It's a drama engine that never runs out of fuel. And that right there is the key. It's an engine. And engines are built by someone for a purpose. We've been focusing on the characters in the play, but we've failed to look at the playwright, the director, the one who owns the entire theater, the network. For the past several months, our channel has been in contact with a source, a disgruntled former production manager who worked on several seasons of 90 Day Fiancé, The Other Way. This individual, who we will call Mark, to protect their identity and career, grew increasingly disillusioned with the ethical lines being blurred in the name of entertainment. Mark has provided us with a wealth of information, but one document stands above all else. It is, he claims, the smoking gun, a single page scanned and sent to us under the highest security, from what he alleges is Jenny and Sumit's current series regular contract with Sharp Entertainment, the production company behind the show. And what it contains is a bombshell that recontextualizes their entire relationship as we've seen it on screen. The clause is titled Section 4, Subsection B, Geographic Exclusivity. Let me read you the most crucial part verbatim. The continued engagement of the contracted talent, heretofore referred to as the couple, is contingent upon the fundamental viability of their established storyline. This storyline, as developed and invested in by the production company, is defined by the India-based culture clash narrative. The primary filming location must remain within the Republic of India to maintain the narrative's integrity and core conflict. Any unilateral decision by the couple to relocate their primary residence to the United States of America during the term of this agreement will be considered a material breach of this clause. It goes on to state the consequences, resulting in the immediate termination of their series contract, forfeiture of any outstanding payments, and a potential penalty claim for prepaid production and relocation costs incurred by the production company. Let that sink in. This isn't just a standard television contract. This is a life contract. According to this document, the very foundation of their career, their only significant source of income, is legally chained to the geography of India. Their story is not just a story, it's a product. And the product is specifically an India-based culture clash narrative. A move to America doesn't just change the scenery, it destroys the product. It renders their storyline, in the cold corporate language of the contract, non-viable. If Jenny and Sumit were to pack their bags and fly to Palm Springs to live a quiet life near her family, TLC wouldn't just stop filming them. They would be in breach of contract. Their paychecks would stop instantly, and they could even be sued. Suddenly, everything clicks into place. Every baffling decision, every stalled conversation, every convenient obstacle. It all starts to make a terrifying kind of sense. The theory we are presenting today is this. The primary force keeping Jenny in India and Sumit from moving to America has never been Sumit's parents. It has been TLC. The network has invested hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of dollars in building the Jenny and Sumit brand. And that brand is entirely 100% dependent on its location. Think about it. What is their story without India? Without the disapproving family next door? Without the trips to the astrologer? Without the struggles of a Western woman adapting to a traditional Indian lifestyle? Without the vibrant, chaotic, and visually compelling backdrop of a foreign country? If they move to America, what are they? They become just another couple. Jenny and Sumit in Palm Springs. What's the drama? They argue about what to watch on Netflix? They struggle to find good parking at Trader Joe's? They might be happier, but they would be television dead. They would be boring. And in the world of reality TV, boring is a death sentence. Their lucrative, decade-long television career would evaporate overnight. Now, let's re-examine Sumit's infamous reluctance. We've all been frustrated with him. We've called him weak, a mama's boy, indecisive. We've accused him of stringing Jenny along, but what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if his reluctance isn't a character flaw, but a calculated and frankly necessary business decision? Imagine you are Sumit. You have a job that pays you more money than you could likely ever make otherwise. It has made you a global celebrity. It provides for you and your wife. The only condition of this dream job is that you must perform a specific role in a specific location. Your job is to be the man torn between two worlds. Your job is to live in India. Your boss has made it crystal clear in a legally binding document that if you leave India, you are fired. And not just fired, but potentially in debt to the company. With that in mind, watch his scenes again. His pained expressions, his hesitant answers, his vague promises to think about it. It's not the look of a man afraid of his mother. It's the look of a man who knows he is lying to his wife on camera. A lie he is forced to tell to protect their livelihood. He can't just turn to Jenny and the cameras and say, "Honey, we literally can't move. It's in our contract. We'll be broke and they might sue us." That would break the fourth wall. It would shatter the illusion and expose the entire artifice of the show. So, he has to play the part. He has to use his parents as the excuse, the perfect pre-approved scapegoat provided by the narrative itself. Anil and Sadhna aren't the real villains. They are the perfect alibi. A convenient, emotionally charged reason that keeps the audience hooked, and, most importantly, keeps the story in India, right where the contract says it has to be. This Geographic Exclusivity Clause reframes every major conflict they've ever had. Let's go back. The long, drawn-out process of telling his parents about Jenny. Was it just fear? Or was it a way to perfectly milk the culture clash narrative for maximum screen time, season after season? By delaying the reveal, they guaranteed themselves another contract renewal. The drama wasn't in the reveal itself, but in the agonizingly slow journey to the reveal. It was a masterclass in extending the storyline. A storyline whose value, remember, is tied directly to conflict in India. And what about the shocking discovery of Sumit's arranged marriage? The official story is that Sumit hid this from Jenny and the producers. But how plausible is that really? A major international television production with fixers and researchers on the ground somehow failed to uncover that their main subject was already married. It seems unlikely. A more cynical and perhaps more realistic view, through the lens of our contract theory, is that the network knew all along, or at least they found out early on and saw it not as a problem, but as a gold mine. It was the ultimate obstacle, the peak of the culture clash narrative. It provided seasons worth of content, the confrontation, the divorce proceedings, the legal threats, the family's shame. It was a plot twist so perfect it feels written. Perhaps the network didn't orchestrate the marriage, but they certainly knew how to exploit it to its fullest potential, ensuring that Sumit was legally and logistically trapped in India for years, unable to even think about a US visa. This brings us to the astrologer, Khalid. He has become a recurring character in their saga, a convenient source of external validation for whatever narrative direction the show needs to take. When Sumit's parents were the main obstacle, the astrologer warned of family strife. When they needed a reason to delay the marriage, the astrologer advised patience. It's a brilliant production tool. He provides a culturally specific justification for any plot point, cloaked in the mystique of ancient tradition. But how much of it is genuine guidance, and how much is a production-friendly way to enforce the contract's terms? The Stars Say You Should Not Move to America is a much more compelling story for television than The Network Lawyers Say You Should Not Move to America. The astrologer allows them to keep the conflict in-world, preserving the illusion that these are organic life events, not carefully managed contractual obligations. We also have to consider their financial situation. Jenny is on a tourist visa, now a marriage visa, but she cannot legally work in India. Sumit's job prospects outside of the show have always been portrayed as limited. They are, for all intents and purposes, completely and utterly dependent on their TLC paycheck. This isn't a side gig for them, it's their lifeblood. This financial dependency is the enforcement mechanism for the Geographic Exclusivity Clause. They don't have the go-to-hell money to be able to walk away. They can't afford to breach the contract. They are in a state of golden handcuffs, living a life of relative fame and comfort, but the price is their freedom of movement. The price is Jenny's dream of going home. Think about the sheer cruelty of this from Jenny's perspective. For a decade, she has been operating under the belief that the battle was against Sumit's family. She has poured her emotional energy into winning over Sadhna, into proving her worth, into waiting for Sumit to become a man and stand up to them. She believes she is in a battle of love and tradition, but if this contract is real, she's not. She's been a pawn in a game she didn't even know she was playing. The finish line she has been desperately running towards, a life with Sumit in America, was never real. It was a mirage, a narrative carrot dangled in front of her to keep her running on the production treadmill. Every time she brings up moving to the US on camera, she thinks she is having a real, heartfelt conversation with her husband. But what is Sumit doing? Is he having a conversation? Or is he performing a scene he knows the ending to? A scene where he must, once again, find a new way to say no, because his contract and their entire financial future depends on it. This reframes Sumit's character from a simple mama's boy into something far more complex and tragic. Is he a co-conspirator, actively deceiving his wife to protect his income? Or is he a victim in his own right, a man who loves his wife but is trapped by a decision he likely made years ago, a deal with the devil that he can't escape? Perhaps the lie began as a necessity, and now it has grown so large that telling the truth would not only end their career, but could potentially destroy their marriage. How do you tell the woman you love that her dream, the one you've been promising her for a decade, was a fantasy you were contractually obligated to entertain but never fulfill? How does she look at you the same way again? So he continues the performance. He takes the audience's criticism. He endures Jenny's tears, because the alternative is to detonate a truth bomb that would obliterate their entire world. The stress we see on his face might not be from his parents. It might be the crushing weight of maintaining this decade-long deception, both to his wife and to the world. And this brings us to the very heart of the matter, the concept of the franchise prisoner. Jenny Slatten is, in this theory, the quintessential example. Her home is not just a home, it is a film set. Her marriage is not just a marriage, it is a storyline. And her deepest personal conflict, her separation from her family and her homeland, is not a private sorrow. It is her primary monetizable commodity. She is an employee, and her job description, mandated by this alleged Geographic Exclusivity Clause, requires her to live in a perpetual state of homesickness and unresolved conflict in a foreign country for the entertainment of a global audience. She is trapped not just by her love for Sumit, but by her employment contract. It's a prison with invisible bars, constructed from legalese and non-disclosure agreements. Every scene where she looks wistfully at pictures of her grandchildren takes on a new, darker meaning. It's no longer just a moment of personal sadness. It's a work requirement. She is fulfilling her role as the displaced American, the core of the culture clash narrative. The network isn't just documenting her pain, it is, according to this theory, contractually mandating the conditions that create it. They need her to be a fish out of water. A fish in the water is just a fish. It isn't a story. This theory posits that TLC has engineered a perfect, self-sustaining drama loop. They cast an American woman who deeply desires to be in America with her family. They pair her with a foreign man who, for cultural and now, we allege, contractual reasons, cannot leave his home country. They place them together and film the inevitable, unending friction. It's a genius move from a production standpoint. They don't need to invent new drama. The drama is inherent to the very structure of the situation they have legally enforced. The conflict is not an event, it is the environment. And Jenny and Sumit are forced to live in it, breathe it, and perform it, day in and day out. Before we move on to the next, even more explosive part of this investigation, let's consider the implications. We, the viewers, have been consuming a story we thought was about love triumphing over cultural divides. But what if the real story is about a corporation triumphing over the personal autonomy of its talent? We have been rooting for a happy ending that may have been contractually forbidden from the start. We have been judging Sumit for a weakness that may, in fact, be a desperate act of financial self-preservation. And we have been sympathizing with Jenny's plight, not realizing that her plight might be the very product she is paid to deliver. The question is no longer, will Sumit's parents ever let them be happy? The question we must now ask is, will TLC's contract ever let them be free? And what happens when the prisoner finally sees the bars of her cage? What happens when Jenny discovers the truth? That reckoning is where this story takes its most dramatic turn, and we have the inside story on what could happen next. We'll be right back. Next, we are back, and for those of you just joining us, we have unveiled what our inside source alleges is the central lie of Jenny and Sumit's entire story, a Geographic Exclusivity Clause in their TLC contract that forbids them from moving to the United States, as it would destroy the India-based culture clash narrative that forms the basis of their employment. We've laid out how this theory recontextualizes every major event in their decade-long saga, reframing Sumit's reluctance not as a personal failing, but as a contractual obligation, and Jenny's dream of returning to America as a narrative hook that was never meant to be realized. Now, we enter the most critical phase of this theory, the reckoning. What happens when the performance stops? What happens when Jenny finds out? This is where our insider, Mark, provided the most chilling details. He described an atmosphere of intense control on set, where producers are masters at steering conversations and framing situations to fit the required narrative. He alleged that cast members are often kept in the dark about each other's specific contractual details, a classic divide-and-conquer strategy. Sumit would know the terms of his agreement, but Jenny may have only a vague understanding or may have signed a document pages long without her own independent legal counsel fully explaining the subclauses written in dense legalese. She might believe the barriers are real, because for all practical purposes, they are. But she attributes them to family, not a corporate document. The reckoning, as we are about to outline, is a hypothetical scenario, a theory of what would happen if this truth were to come to light. But it is a theory based on Mark's insights into the production's methods and Jenny's known personality. So, how does she find out? It wouldn't happen on camera, not at first. The leak wouldn't come from a producer. It would come from the outside world. Imagine a scenario, much like this one. A YouTube channel, a blog, a social media account gets leaked. A screenshot of that clause, Section 4, Subsection B, starts circulating online among the 90-Day Fiancé fan community. It becomes a hashtag, #TLCPrisoner. Jenny, who is active on social media, would inevitably see it. At first, she would dismiss it as just another crazy rumor, another hater making things up. She would probably even defend the network, as cast members are often trained to do, but the seed of doubt would be planted. The clause itself, the specific wording, India-based culture clash narrative, would echo in her mind. It would sound eerily familiar. It would sound like the feedback she gets from producers, the kind of questions they ask in her confessional interviews. But Jenny, how does this make you feel as an American woman in India? Focus on the cultural differences here, Jenny. Suddenly, those aren't just interview questions. They are verbal enforcements of her contract. The next step would be quiet, desperate research. She would pull out her copy of the contract, a document she probably hasn't looked at in years. And with trembling hands, she would find the section. And there it would be, in black and white. All the legal jargon, all the corporate doublespeak, confirming the rumor was true. The feeling that would wash over her would be a complex cocktail of horror, betrayal, and a strange, sickening sense of clarity. It's the kind of moment that shatters your reality. It's the moment you realize you are not in the driver's seat of your own life. Every memory of the last 10 years would be instantly rewritten. Every tearful plea to Sumit to move to America, every promise he made to try, every fight they had, every moment of frustration, all of it would be recast as a scene in a long, cruel play. She would realize she wasn't arguing with her husband, she was arguing with a co-star who was contractually obligated to take the opposing view. The man she loved, the man she had sacrificed everything for, had been her partner in a marriage, but also her co-worker in a deception against her. This is where the reckoning becomes the confrontation. We must imagine this scene. It's not for the cameras. This is real. This is the moment the artifice collapses. Jenny, holding the contract, or her phone with the hashtag on the screen, approaches Sumit. There are no producers there to mediate, no sound guy to capture the audio. It's just a husband and a wife in their apartment in India, which she now sees as a gilded cage. "What is this, Sumit?" she would ask, her voice shaking. "Is this true?" And what could he say? The years of carefully constructed excuses, of blaming his parents, of feigning indecision, would be useless. The proof is in her hands. He could try to deny it, but the lie is too big, too specific. The only thing left for him would be a confession. He would have to admit it. He would have to look the woman he loves in the eye and say, "Yes, Jenny, it's true, I knew. I couldn't tell you. We can't go to America. If we do, we lose everything." That confession would be the ultimate betrayal, worse than the catfishing, worse than the secret marriage, because those were deceptions about his past. This is a deception about their future. It's the theft of her dream. She would realize her entire life in India, her entire relationship as it has existed for the past decade, has been predicated on a lie she was the last person to know about. She is not just Sumit's wife, she is a contracted employee, and her job is to be the perpetually unhappy foreigner. Her homesickness is a key performance indicator. Her conflict is the commodity she produces. Her personal misery is the network's profit margin. The rage and heartbreak would be unimaginable. "You let me fight with your parents? You let me cry myself to sleep wanting to see my grandchildren? You let me believe for 10 years that there was a light at the end of this tunnel?" Every word would be a dagger. And for Sumit, the guilt must be suffocating. He likely justified it to himself. He was protecting her, providing for her. This was the only way they could be together and be financially secure. He probably told himself that one day, when the show ended, he would figure it out. But the show never ended. The contract kept getting renewed. The lie had to be maintained. He is as much a prisoner of this clause as she is, but he is a prisoner with knowledge of the bars. He is the warden of his own jail. This confrontation changes the fundamental dynamic of their relationship forever. Can you ever truly trust someone again after a betrayal of this magnitude? Can love survive the revelation that your shared life has been, in part, a business transaction with secret terms and conditions? This is the core of the human drama that TLC would never show you, because it exposes their own role as the villain. Now, let's widen the lens. If a contract this manipulative exists for a flagship couple like Jenny and Sumit, who else in the 90-day universe is living under a similar clause? Who else is a franchise prisoner? The patterns are there if you look for them. Consider Paul and Karine. For years, their story was contingent on the American man in the Brazilian Amazon narrative. The drama came from the extreme poverty, the language barrier, the danger, the cultural shock of him trying to adapt to her world. Every time he tried to bring her to the US, it ended in disaster, and they would inevitably end up back in Brazil, back where the core narrative was strongest. Was there a clause in their contract mandating that their story's viability was dependent on the Brazil-based drama? It would certainly explain the endless baffling cycle of them moving back and forth, always landing back where the conflict was most potent for the cameras. Think about Tiffany and Ronald. Their entire storyline was built around the South Africa problem. Ronald's gambling addiction, his criminal record, the visa process, the danger of the location, these were the pillars of their narrative. Tiffany's role was the long-suffering American woman, making tearful trips to a country she felt was unsafe, tethered to a man who couldn't leave. A move to the US for Ronald would have resolved their central conflict. What's the story then? A recovering addict trying to make it in suburban Maryland? It's a story, but it's not the high-stakes international drama that 90-Day Fiancé the other way sells. Could their endless visa problems have been not just documented by TLC, but perhaps even desired and maintained by them, ensured by a contract that made a permanent move to the US a breach of contract? This theory suggests a systemic practice. The network identifies a compelling international location, a specific set of cultural conflicts, and then contractually locks the couple into that dynamic. The story is not, will they get together and live happily ever after? The story is, can we keep them in this state of perpetual conflict for as many seasons as possible? The show's very premise, particularly on The Other Way, becomes suspect. It's presented as Americans choosing to move for love. But what if it's about Americans being contractually bound to a location for a paycheck? This leads us to the final and most important question. Is this ethical? Is it morally defensible for a media corporation to dictate where a person is allowed to live as a condition of their employment? We are not talking about an office job where you have to live in a certain city to commute. We are talking about a contract that potentially dictates the entire course of a person's life, their relationship with their family, and their ability to choose their own home, all for the sake of creating entertainment. These are not actors playing a role for 6 months and then going back to their real lives. Their real life is the set. Their real marriage is the script. The line is not just blurred, it is erased. The Geographic Exclusivity Clause, if it is real, turns human beings into living zoo exhibits, confined to a specific enclosure because the visitors enjoy watching them struggle with that specific environment. It's a Truman Show-esque nightmare, but with a crucial difference. Truman didn't know he was in a cage. The franchise prisoners, like Sumit, know. And that knowledge, that complicity in their own captivity, is the most tragic part of all. Jenny is the Truman who is just now starting to see the cameras hidden in the walls. So what now? Jenny is faced with an impossible choice. Option 1. She stays silent. She accepts the golden handcuffs. She continues to play her part, knowing it's all a lie, and cashes the TLC checks. She lives out her days in India, her dream of an American future dead, her trust in her husband shattered, but her financial security intact. Option 2. She exposes them. She breaks her NDA, she leaks the contract herself, she goes public. This would likely lead to a massive lawsuit from the network. She would be financially ruined, her TV career over. But she would be free. She could go home. Which do you choose? A comfortable prison or a bankrupt freedom? This is the ultimate reckoning. It's not just about a relationship, it's about the ethics of an entire genre of entertainment. We, the audience, are complicit in this. We demand drama. We tune in for the conflict. The network is simply providing the product that we consume. But do we have a right to demand a product that is predicated on the contractual limitation of a person's basic human right to choose where they live? Are we watching a love story, or are we watching a hostage situation with a paycheck? Her home is her workplace, and her conflict is her commodity. Is it ethical for a network to dictate where a person can live for the sake of a storyline? We've presented the evidence, the theory, and the potential fallout. Now we want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the Geographic Exclusivity Clause is real? Who else could be a victim? The conversation starts now. In the first part of this investigation, we dropped a bombshell: the alleged existence of a Geographic Exclusivity Clause in Jenny and Sumit's TLC contract. A clause that tethers them to India and renders their on-screen arguments about moving to the US a carefully constructed performance. We theorized that Sumit isn't a mama's boy, but a contractually obligated actor. And Jenny isn't just a wife, but a franchise prisoner, her homesickness a monetizable commodity. We left off asking a critical question: is this ethical? But to truly understand the depth of this issue, we must go beyond that single clause and look at the entire system of control that makes such a clause not just possible, but ruthlessly effective. This isn't just about one contract. It's about a playbook, a set of psychological tools the production uses to manage its assets. And the assets, let's be clear, are the people themselves. Our source, Mark, described this playbook in detail. It begins with isolation. Think of Jenny's situation. She is in a foreign country, thousands of miles from her support system. Her primary human connection, her husband, is, in this theory, a co-conspirator in the narrative. The production team, the camera operators, the producers, they become a surrogate family. They are the ones she interacts with daily. They listen to her problems, they offer a shoulder to cry on. But this is a calculated intimacy. It fosters dependence. When the only people validating your feelings are the ones who are also editing them for broadcast, who do you trust? Who can you turn to for an unbiased opinion? This isolation makes it nearly impossible for talent to get a clear perspective on their own situation. Any doubts can be soothed away, any rebellion gently steered back into the pre-approved storyline. They are encouraged to see the producers as their allies, their confidants, when in reality, they are their handlers. Next comes the financial control, and it is absolute. These are not lump sum payments. Talent is typically paid per episode they appear in. This creates a powerful incentive to deliver the drama the network wants. The more screen time you get, the more you get paid. And how do you get more screen time? By having conflict. A happy, stable couple living a quiet life might get a 5-minute segment once every 3 episodes. A couple in constant crisis, threatening to break up, fighting with family, grappling with cultural divides, they become the A story. They are the ones who get the full 20-minute segments, the cliffhangers, the promotional spots. The contract doesn't have to explicitly say, you must fight with your mother-in-law. The payment structure does it for them. It's a performance-based incentive system where the performance is miserable. Sumit and Jenny's perpetual will they or won't they move debate is a financial annuity. As long as they keep that conflict alive, they guarantee their appearance in the next episode, the next season, the next spin-off. To resolve it would be to voluntarily take a massive pay cut, or worse, to be written off the show entirely. Then there is the most insidious tool of all, the power of the edit. This is the unspoken threat that hangs over every cast member's head. They know that hundreds of hours of footage are filmed, and the producers have the absolute power to construct any narrative they choose from that raw material. If you are cooperative, if you play your assigned role, you will likely get a sympathetic edit. You'll be the hero of your story, the long-suffering victim. If you push back, if you refuse to play ball, if you start questioning the narrative, you risk getting the villain edit. Your worst moments will be magnified, your reasonable statements taken out of context. You can be transformed from a complex human being into a caricature, the gold digger, the fool, the abuser, the lunatic. This power is a form of psychological leverage. It keeps the talent compliant. They know that their public reputation, their social media following, their very legacy is in the hands of the editors. So they give the producers what they want, hoping that in return, the final cut will be kind to them. Sumit plays the part of the indecisive son because he knows the edit can either portray him as a man struggling honorably with his duty or as a weak, deceitful liar who is torturing his wife. The edit he gets is his reward for compliance. Now, let's apply this framework, this theory of the franchise prisoner, to other iconic couples. Let's see if the pattern holds. Consider the saga of Nicole and Azan. For years, their story was a masterclass in narrative stalling. The central conflict was clear: a financially struggling American woman desperately trying to unite with her Moroccan fiancé, who was of questionable character and had a mysterious inability to get a visa. Their storyline was contingent on their separation. The drama was in the will she get to him? Will he get to her? Is he scamming her questions? According to our theory, a geographic exclusivity clause would have been the bedrock of their contract. The viability of their storyline depended on Nicole being the delusional American and Azan being the mysterious foreigner in Morocco. Think about the infamous store. Nicole supposedly gave Azan $6,000 to open a beauty store, which never materialized. The audience screamed, "Scam!" But what if the store was a brilliant production invention, a perfect long-term plot device? It provided a plausible reason for Nicole to keep sending money, fueling the "is he a scammer?" narrative. It created a source of endless conflict between them. And most importantly, it was a financial black hole that ensured Nicole would never have enough money to realistically move to Morocco full-time, nor would Azan have the resources to convincingly pursue a life in America. The store was the anchor that kept them both locked in their designated narrative roles and locations. And what about Azan's repeated K-1 visa denials? The show portrayed it as a frustrating bureaucratic hurdle. But for the network, it was a narrative blessing. Every denial was another season guaranteed. His final denial wasn't the end of their story. It was the trigger for the next chapter. Nicole must now try to move to Morocco. It's a perfect loop. Each resolution just resets the board for the same fundamental conflict. Nicole and Azan weren't a failed couple. They were a wildly successful product that generated years of content precisely because they were contractually prevented from ever truly succeeding. Now let's turn to the undisputed queen of the franchise, Angela Deem, and her husband, Michael Ilisanmi. Their story is perhaps the most glaring example of a location-based narrative. For season after season, the entire engine of their drama was Michael being in Nigeria and Angela being in America. The value of their story was in the contrast, the loud, chaotic, American Angela descending into a traditional Nigerian community. Her explosive fights with Michael's friends, her confrontations about their culture, her long-distance trust issues. That was the show. TLC invested heavily in this dynamic. They filmed multiple trips to Nigeria, capturing footage that was visually and culturally distinct from anything else in the franchise. The central goal, the supposed light at the end of the tunnel, was always getting Michael to America. But think about it from a production standpoint. Michael in America is a fundamentally less interesting story. The power dynamic shifts. The cultural clash is muted. He's no longer on his home turf. The drama engine loses its primary fuel source. So for years, the visa was delayed, denied, put on hold. Each setback was presented as a heartbreaking obstacle for the couple, but for the network, it was a guarantee of another season of their tried and true formula. Now, Michael is finally in America. Does this disprove our theory? Not at all. It suggests the end of a contract's life cycle. After milking the Michael in Nigeria storyline for every possible drop of drama, after Angela's surgeries, her flirtations with other men, the endless breakup threats, the narrative had run its course. The audience was growing tired of the same loop. So the network pivoted. They allowed the move to happen, not as a happy ending, but as the beginning of a new contract, a new storyline. Nigerian man struggles to adapt to chaotic life in Georgia. The location has changed, but the principle is the same. They have simply moved the fish to a different, smaller bowl. The conflict is now his culture clashing with hers on her home turf. The prison has just been relocated. This pattern even works in reverse. Take Yara and Jovi. Their narrative was never about getting Yara to America. It started with her in America on the K-1 visa. The conflict was her immediate and vocal unhappiness with her new life. She hated the Louisiana food, the swampy environment, and Jovi's partying lifestyle. Her entire storyline was that of the sophisticated, displaced European woman who felt superior to her new American surroundings. She constantly threatened to go back to Ukraine or move to a more classy city. According to our theory, her contract wouldn't have an India-based clause, but an America-based culture clash clause. Her job was to be an unhappy immigrant. If she had genuinely embraced life in Louisiana, become best friends with Jovi's mom, and learned to love Cajun cooking, her story would be over. The producers needed her to be discontent. They needed her to complain about the decor, to yearn for Prague, to look down on Jovi's friends. Her dissatisfaction was her product. She wasn't just allowed to be unhappy, she was likely contractually and financially incentivized to perform that unhappiness for the cameras. This brings us to a difficult and uncomfortable realization: our role in this. The audience is not a passive observer in the system. We are an active and essential component. We are the end consumer, the source of the demand that drives this entire ethically questionable machine. Every time we click on a YouTube clip titled Jenny and Sadhna's most explosive fight, every time we post a meme mocking Nicole for being delusional, every time we passionately debate on Reddit whether Sumit is a villain or a victim, we are casting a vote. We are telling TLC and Sharp Entertainment, more of this, please. We are providing them with free market research that confirms their strategy. They know the culture clash narrative works because our engagement proves it. They know the will they or won't they move plot is effective because we keep tuning in to find out. Our outrage is part of the business model. Our anger at Sumit, our frustration with Angela, our pity for Jenny, these emotions are the goal. An engaged viewer, even an angry one, is a loyal viewer. A loyal viewer watches the show, the spin-offs, the pillow talks. A loyal viewer sees the commercials. We are the ones who make the franchise prisoner a profitable asset. And this creates a chilling feedback loop. The network creates a miserable situation based on audience demand, and then the audience consumes the misery, which in turn creates demand for more. We are, in a sense, the ones holding the keys to the prison, and we are refusing to unlock the door because we find what's happening inside too entertaining. So we must ask ourselves a hard question. If we were presented with definitive proof that Jenny's pain is a condition of her employment, would we stop watching, or would the story just become more compelling? There is a dark part of human nature that is drawn to this kind of reality-bending drama. It's the same impulse that makes us stare at a car crash. The possibility that this is all a work, a grand, manipulative performance, adds another layer of intrigue. We start watching not just for the story, but to try and spot the cracks in the artifice, to see the moments where the actor falters and the real person peeks through. We become detectives, trying to solve the puzzle of what's real and what's scripted. And in doing so, we become even more deeply enmeshed in the very system we claim to criticize. This leads to the final stage of the franchise prisoner's journey, the endgame. What happens when the contract is finally terminated? When the audience loses interest and the network decides not to renew? The cameras leave, the producers stop calling, the paychecks stop coming. And what is left? A person like Jenny would be left in her mid-70s, having spent the last 15 years of her life in a foreign country, estranged from her family, with a public persona built entirely on a conflict that may have been manufactured. She would have a marriage whose foundation she now knows was, in part, a lie. What marketable skills does she have? Her only professional experience for over a decade has been being Jenny from 90 Day Fiancé. The network can just move on. They can find the next Jenny, the next Sumit. There's an endless supply of hopefuls willing to sign on the dotted line for a shot at fame and fortune. The talent is disposable. The format, the system, the playbook, that's what has value. The cast members are like the batteries in a remote control. When they run out of juice, you just throw them away and put new ones in. They are left to deal with the psychological fallout of having their life, their love, and their deepest insecurities broadcast and monetized for a global audience, and then being discarded when they are no longer profitable. This is the ultimate unspoken cruelty of the system. It doesn't just trap them, it uses them up. It leaves them with a distorted sense of reality, a public identity they can't escape, and often without the financial security they thought they were gaining. The golden handcuffs turn out to be gold-plated shackles, and when they are removed, the prisoner is left blinking in the sunlight, with no map and no destination, having forgotten who they were before they entered the cage. So, as we watch the next season of whatever spin-off they feature on, we must watch differently. We must look past the surface-level drama. When Jenny cries about missing her daughters, don't just see a woman's sadness. See the potential fulfillment of a contractual obligation. When Sumit offers another vague excuse for not moving, don't just hear a weak man's words. Hear the echo of a legal clause being satisfied. When any of these couples engage in the same circular argument for the 10th time, don't see a dysfunctional relationship. See a drama engine being expertly maintained to guarantee another season. The story of the franchise prisoner is not about love, and it's not about culture. It's about commerce. It's about a multi-million-dollar industry that has perfected the art of packaging human struggle as entertainment. And the contract, the Geographic Exclusivity Clause, is its foundational text. It is the real-world spell that creates the on-screen fantasy. The question for us, the viewers, the consumers, the accomplices, is no longer just what will happen next. It's what are we willing to watch? At what point does entertainment become exploitation? And how many more lives have to be confined, controlled, and commodified before we decide to change the channel? The power is and always has been in our hands.